I think Assange, I think he's a complex person. I'm not, I'm not concerned with his personality very much. It's the service that he's doing, whether it's first of all legal or not legal, and it seems to be legal. Whether it's useful as a corrective to, in a sense, behavior, and in some ways it certainly has been. Some of the revelations, and I don't mean the diplomatic, telling tales. I mean the stuff about corruption. The vice president of Afghanistan who walks into the bank in the Gulf with $50 million of our money. I mean, in a sense, the Shell Oil woman executive responsible for Africa who boasts that they've got a Shell person in the cabinet office of every minister. That stuff. And the descriptions, the narrative of crime, of transnational crime, the enormous, almost ubiquitous impact of drug money, that diplomats and are tracing, and people from the drug agencies, that stuff is very useful, and I'm glad it's out there. And some things, look. Politicians are not like you and me in a lot of ways. Power and, they live in a bubble. And it's not unhealthy for some of these people to find out what how they look. Not to opposition members or even to journalists, but to objective diplomats. Reporting some of these excesses. So I think that's good. Now it can't happen every day. I don't know if it'll ever happen again, because I don't think it'll ever be a system as insane as the State Department's data bank on available to 900,000 people. But I'm not against it. I think there are inherently risks. He calls it a new form of investigative journalism, and I think Keller is right as a uber journalist in the sacred temple of journalism, the Times, which does hard news journalism and with great discipline and always with ethics, and have had their ethical conflicts over the years and have fired people. I think Keller's right to say Assange is not doing journalism. And he's not a whistleblower either, really, because he's not an insider. He's kind of something new that the web permits. I don't know what to call it. He's kind of an entrepreneur of information, but he has a mission, and the mission's transparency. He used, I don't mean that in a bad sense, media outlets as disseminators. And they're the ones who edited out the risks. We haven't seen what they've decided not to publish. I guess they've decided, obviously, not to publish some extremely boring things. I think they've decided not to publish things that hurt people unnecessarily without a significance. So-and-so's a jerk. You can say that about Berlusconi because it's common knowledge, but you don't want to say it about somebody that, if it's just a subjective opinion, as opposed to being an established fact. I think the main risks were in revelations about contacts with people who say dissidents, and they, as far as I can see, there haven't been any of those. There must have been in the cables, and that the newspapers took care of that. The other risk that people talk about is that it's revealed the United States' hand with respect to situations. An example given that it showed the Iranian regime what America's strategy was about Iran, and sort of doing, being simultaneously good cop and bad cop, engagement and criticism and this and that. I don't think the Iranians needed Wikileaks to find that out, but I think what the Iranians did need was a wake-up call about how much they're disliked in their own part of the world. And it's not just, you know, when the king of Bahrain, who's got his own problems today, but in Saudi Arabia, urging the United States to use nuclear weapons on Iran, which the United States is not going to do. I'm obviously convinced of that. But it at least, I know that those guys are Sunnis and, you know, Shia stuff, but it shows that the Iranians aren't disliked. And there was other stuff about, you know, the extent to which the Palestinians dislike them. They're, you know, so I'm not, it's not a goal of mine to bring the Iranian government to a more reasonable appreciation of itself, but I think what I'm trying to say is there is a kind of a function of speaking truth to power there, of enabling people to present truth to power, and I hope they get it. My hope is that the reflex, particularly of security agencies, is always to conceal. I mean, it goes back in history. Concealing is important in some cases if you're conducting a police investigation or something. And in diplomatic negotiations for something that's real. It's not concealing for the sake of concealing. But when concealing becomes something like the RCMP and the Robert Jacansky stuff, and then it becomes dissembling and misleading, first of all, it never succeeds, okay? I mean, the truth does always come out. So if this is a wake-up call to security agencies that, look, it's going to come out, truth is going to come out, so bring it out. Even if it's not out of an ethic of public responsibility as a public agency, it's simply the smarter thing to do, you know. So I hope that's the way it's going to go. On the other hand, it could go the other way. It could make them defensive and want to, you know, retain more. And there's a style of government now. I got to say, Tony Blair was the perfecter because he had to unite the Labour Party, make it New Labour, and it was kind of anarchic, and everybody, you know, was treated equally, and it was over. And there was one communicator and one communications message, and that was that, and everybody else shut up. And centralized government became a major technique of government, and we're seeing that in Canada. You know, I understand why people want to control the message, but it can so easily, when you're in power and thinking you're right, okay, and the most important thing for the world, it's like this guy who's the president of Uganda. He's been there for 25 years. He was the chief of staff, and when he did a coup against Milton Obote 25 years ago, he said, well, he's just there to bring, you know, order to the country. And I was listening to him yesterday. There's an election in Uganda, I think today, and he's running, and there actually are opponents. Maybe it'll even be free and fair, I have no idea. But when asked why he's still running, and he's 67, and you're going to be president when you're 72 if you win, he said, well, I'd like to quit, but I'm the father of my people. You know? Now, in democracies, nobody goes quite that far. But people do think that it's really important that you know, their government not be undermined. And so it becomes a rationale for non-transparency. And it's insidious. It's really insidious. So we'll see.